Hello and welcome back to the Skipper's View podcast. This is episode 165. We got a very frequent offender recently, Ben Weaver, joining us today. And
How's it going?
what's going on, Ben? And we got new to the crowd and new to the team, Hagan. Give us an intro,
Fuck,
man.
guys.
What's going on? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be a part of Skipper's View now. My name's Hagan Snell. Most people know me from Reed Garrett Enthusiast on X. I'm just going to put MLB stats out there, and I'm glad to be here.
I just realized your last name is Snell. There's no relation to Blake, right?
No, that's my favorite joke, though, to say, Blake Snell's my second cousin, actually.
You guys don't it's not like you look exactly like him, but I wouldn't be shocked if you said you're like his family. Like, it's not a bad one to go with, but that's awesome. Hagan, welcome to the squad. We're happy to have you guys on. So let's not waste time. Let's jump right into this. Big week this week. We're not directly on it, but we've had a few days to settle on the news. Boys, I'm going to start with Ben. What do we think about Alex Bregman to Boston?
Dude, I love it. I called this back in, I want to say December, November, December. On my Twitter account, I did a little small thread about how Bregman's swing plays perfectly for Fenway. And dude, they needed a power right-handed bat, and they went out and got one. And they spent a pile of money, but that's what it took. And they got the job done. Good on John Henry. Good on the Red Sox for making that move.
Yeah. Hagan, are you're a Mets fan, so I don't know, did this, for me, I'm a Yankees fan. I'm really, I know the Yankees were never even talked about in the last few weeks about Alex Bregman, but in my head, I was like, come on. They got to come out of nowhere and just be like the pain in the ass they are and go get him. I'm upset about it because now they got to play him, I don't even know. What do you play a division rival, 18 times a year?
It's lower now. 18 sounds around the right range.
15. Yeah, maybe about 15, 5 series. What doesn't matter. Yeah, everyone knows Yankees, Red Sox. This is gonna blow for the Yankees. I hate this. And Bregman's just a Yankee killer. So it's but what are your thoughts? Are you did you want him to go somewhere else, or did you want him to go to Boston?
I don't think Boston needed him as much as another team. I think Detroit needed him more than anybody else, but I think the Boston fit is phenomenal. Ben pointed it out. You look at, it's the best ballpark for Alex Bregman. This guy absolutely crushes there. I want to say out of 90 plate appearances, anybody there, he has the highest OPS ever. He's such a good player, especially in Fenway. His style plays there, fits there perfectly. And they also, too, that Boston's also needed that big fish in free agency that they haven't really gotten in a few years. They got rid of Mookie Betts back in 2018, kind of started that rebuild, and they were in on Soto and in on a lot of these big guys, but they haven't gotten that big fish yet, and he's the one they needed.
Yeah, I wanted to point out too that Bregman in his career is hitting 375 at Fenway with 96 plate appearances and a 1250 OPS. Just to point out what Hagan said, that's the highest OPS of any player ever with at least 90 plate appearances in Fenway. And that ballpark is one of the oldest in baseball. Buddy can swing it, and he plays very well there.
Yeah, I wasn't too familiar with the career numbers, but just because the Green Monster, I have a feeling it might affect the power a little bit more. But obviously, the career numbers back up that totally against what I'm saying. I could see him actually gaining a couple points in batting average this year, becoming more of a slap hitter using that wall. I don't know. We'll see. But this is a big boy move for Boston. I have his Baseball Reference page pulled up. Career almost 200 home runs. Career 270 hitter. He's a problem, and a 40 WAR over his career. He is a problem. But good for Boston. Not good for the Cubs. Not good for Detroit. Not good for Houston. Even though Houston might believe it's for the best. But next up, we'll jump from Bregman to, actually, I should mention the deal is 3 years, $120 million. It's the fourth most AAV in MLB history with $40 million a year. It's a lot of money. I know Dean initially commented on this saying that he doesn't like Boston being tied up with so much money, but it's okay because it's a shorter deal. But it is a lot of money. So good for him getting his. I respect that. And speaking of getting his, we got to talk about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He's been all over the news recently because what has he got? A day left or maybe 2 days left before he has to sign? Hey, I'm going to let you take this one. What do you think is going to happen with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. here? Do you think that he's going to get a deal done with Toronto? Do you think they're going to be smart and extend him? Or do you think it's done. The Vladimir Guerrero Jr. relationship in Toronto is done.
I think it's done. He's given him a deadline for a reason, and he's given him a number. From my knowledge, he's given him a number, and from what we know so far, especially the offers that reportedly came out, they've lowballed him. I mean, they haven't even really gotten that close to him. And just why are you lowballing a guy like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who's 26-year-old and he's a top 10 hitter in baseball? I mean, if he goes to free agency too, especially there's going to be teams like Boston that are going to be on him. The Mets are going to be big on him. There's going to be a lot of teams that want him. The Yankees probably be big on him too. There's going to be a lot of teams that want him. And especially just going forward future-wise, Toronto hasn't been able to – they don't have a great future outlook. And if you're going to go to free agency and get the same amount of money from those other teams that have a lot better future outlooks and a lot of guys that can be sidekicks to him, I just don't see him staying in Toronto.
Yeah, it's tough for me. Like, I don't know why Toronto. I think he was offered somewhere in the low 300 millions by Toronto already. He's asking for something like $100 million north of that, which means 440 minimum. Though you got to expect teams are going to get a bit in a bidding war about this guy. Why is Toronto, and Ben, let's hear your take on this. Why is Toronto not offering this man like a 465 million, like a little bit above asking? Just give him the money, ask him for 12 years, and guarantee like 90% of it. He plays first base. He's not going to get injured out there. And you signed a youngster for 12 years. Like, plus you're giving him the respect of like, hey, we're not going to even let you get to the bidding, but we're going to pay you a little bit more. And they're not committing. What I think he's going to end up signing for is closer to 500 million, given the contracts that have just been given out. This man is going to sign for. He's young. He's not Bregman where he's like 30 years old or 31. You saw how Juan Soto just got paid. Like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is in the mid-20s. He's in his peak. He's going to get near 500 million. So it's slapping him in the face. It's Toronto saying they don't. I don't make sense of this, Ben. I don't know.
I think Toronto just doesn't have a direction. They don't know where they're going. Like, they have Vladdy sitting right there, obviously, but they're not sure. Like, because, Bichette hasn't worked out. Biggio didn't work out. I mean, Bichette's good, but he's not like a superstar, especially if he has another year like he did in 2024. I don't know if the Blue Jays like want to spend that kind of money on a first baseman when they have so many other holes they need to fix. Like, would Vladdy be a awesome piece of that lineup for 12, 13, 14 years? Absolutely. But do they want to go out there and spend that money on a guy who, they may not win. They may not have the pieces around him in order to help him win. Going off of what, Hagan said, the Yankees, I doubt he'd go there because he's been open about not wanting to go to the Yankees. But if the Blue Jays are smart, and they don't get a deal done, trade him to a contender at the deadline, rebuild your farm system, and then throw him the biggest bag that he has ever seen in his life on the offseason to try to get him to come back. You got to rebuild that farm system. They have some guys like Ricky Tiedemann, pitching-wise, who are going to come up. Throw him the bag in the offseason. Let him make his own decision where he wants to go.
Sorry, Hayden, go.
I was just going to bring up a good point, too, is you brought up if you trade him and you could stock up that farm because you can say, yeah, you'd get the qualifying offer in the offseason, but, like, you could get more in a package than you would if you – like, you can get a lot for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And even, too, the compensation pick they would get, it would be lower, too, because where they're at in the luxury tax. Like, they have a very high payroll, so it wouldn't be just a standard, hey, you're getting this draft pick, I don't know, I think second round normally, but I think it would fall down to a third or a fourth round pick.
Yeah, imagine, like, someone like Seattle with their farm system, like going out and just like adding this and making this the Julio Vladdy show for like the next 10 years. I don't know why I always bring it back to Seattle. I just think their colors are so fucking cool. Like I'm a big Seattle Mariners fan randomly but if he goes or like even the Rangers get Sebastian Walcott and either a Jack Leiter, maybe a Kumar Rocker out of this, they got some depth and they're contenders and they could both add him. And they can make it make sense. I don't know. We'll see. That's enough about Vladdy, though. We'll see what happens here in the next 2 days. I agree with you, Hagan. I don't think a deal is going to get done. I think they're unfortunately going to have to go the trade route or they're going to miss out big time. We'll jump to, finally, another, all-star here, a perennial all-star, Nolan Arenado. So, a lot of news. And before we jumped on, I don't know if you guys even saw this yet. Arenado said, one, it sounds like he's staying in St. Louis right now. I think they're going to wait and milk that value up until the All-Star break area where a contender really goes from. The thing is, though, which he just doubled down on, he said he's not going to amend the list of teams he's willing to go to, and made like points. I didn't read the whole, story that MLB.com put about it, but it was essentially, he made comments like, I have a family. I'm 30 years old. Like, I have other priorities. I'm not just moving my family for shits and gigs. I want to, which is fine. That's totally respectful. Did St. Louis just pigeonhole him? Or I guess, is St. Louis now in trouble, I should say it, by the fact that he's only willing to go to 5 teams, and he's probably one of their top trade assets, if not their top trade asset? What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think St. Louis screwed the pooch on this, or what do you think is going to go on with Arenado? Because it just doesn't seem like he's going to be in St. Louis forever.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I think Arenado might be one of just the biggest losers of this entire offseason. We talked about winners and losers with teams, but players-wise, I mean, he gives this list of 5 teams, so those teams know, hey, he's only coming to us. Like, we're not going to give up immense value for him because we know we're the only teams you can trade us to. And then even, too, he had that Houston deal that he vetoed, and, I mean, Houston be a lot better situation than St. Louis. Hasn't spent a single dollar in free agency so far, it's a clear rebuild going on now.
Yeah. Ben,
Personally,
are you still on the Arenado train at this point? Are you a big Arenado fan?
I mean, I like Arenado. Like, he's 2-3 years away from having the best season of his career. I don't think he's done. I think he kind of screwed the pooch a little bit more by not accepting a trade to Houston. Like, with Yordan Alvarez still in that lineup, Jose Altuve in that lineup, and adding a Nolan Arenado in that lineup, along with Jeremy Pena, who is, okay with the bat. That lineup is not bad, and their pitching is still elite. So I think that Arenado, if he wanted... Yeah, and they have Christian Walker at first. It's not like he would be going to just some random team. If Arenado wanted to win and he wanted to, solidify his legacy in the league more so than he already has, I would have accepted that trade to Houston. He could have won there. It's moving closer to the West Coast at that point. I think he might have screwed himself a little bit more than the Cardinals.
Yeah, after seeing the stuff today with the whole family comment, and I have no idea about I think he's from Florida originally, Nolan Arenado, if I'm remembering that correctly.
But I'm sorry to cut you off, but wasn't the Dodgers and Angels and Padres on his list of teams he would go to? Like, if he's from the East Coast, why would he want to go out there?
Could be the wife's side of the family. I have no idea. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. He's from California originally. My apologies.
Newport Beach.
Yeah. So he's from California. That makes sense. Yeah, I think it was all West Coast based teams and maybe like wife's side of the family. Who knows? It just like, even though you had this little limit, and I understand you don't want to move your family. It's just like, it wasn't. I 100% agree with you. It's not like the Pirates called and said, "Hey, come to Pittsburgh." It was the Houston Astros, and they've been the bad boys of the American League for the last decade. Like they've had, what do they have? 8 American League championship series, like attendant part of, and they have 2 World Series in that span as well. I was perplexed when he turned down a trade to Houston, especially when I think Christian Walker was signed actually before that. Was it? Do you guys remember if Christian Walker was signed before Arenado declined the trade, or was it after?
I believe it was before, yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Even if it was before, they still had Kyle Tucker at that time. And the Kyle Tucker news was shocking that they moved him.
Mm-hmm.
Tucker, Altuve, Alvarez, Yanier Diaz, Pena. It's crazy. Well, we'll see how this unfolds during the season. This is a big story, the Nolan Arenado thing. So we'll see how it pans out. We'll jump here to the American League. And during the season, we do like a hot takes portion of this. And I have all the hot takes recorded on one sheet. You'll see how bad some of them are. One of my hot takes last year was Cole Reagans would not finish as a top 10 Cy Young finalist in the American League. 4th overall in the Cy Young voting. I am eating crud on that one. He just got earned a 3-year contract. Ben, let's hear your thoughts on, what do you think of him as a pitcher? Good fit in Kansas City. Do you think this is a good deal for him, or do you think he deserves a little bit more after last year's performance?
I'm not going to lie to you. The very second that I saw that trade go through where Aroldis Chapman was going from the Royals to the Rangers and I saw Cole Reagan's name involved, I immediately was like, the Rangers are going to be kicking themselves in the ass every day for the next 7, 8, 9 years because of this. Cole Reagans is a stud. This kid throws upper 90s as a lefty. He's got some wipeout breaking pitches. He's good. He has good control. He limits hard contact. I love Cole Reagans as a pitcher. Last year in fantasy, I traded for him in the first 2 weeks of the season because I was like, I just believe in this guy, and I did not get the chance to draft him. But I think he is going to be a top 10 Cy Young candidate for a while. And I think this arbitration contract that he got is really good for both of them. It's a fairly cheap deal on the Royals side, but it also solidifies him more money than he probably would have gotten through his first 2 years of arbitration. So I think it's good on both ends. The Royals get an ace pitcher who they can count on for years, hopefully, and then Reagans gets the money that every major leaguer wants. Win-win.
Yeah, I think I was my hot take on Reagans, by the way, it did have a lot to do with the fact that he's a 2-time Tommy John guy. So I was just I don't know. I don't have faith in 2-time Tommy John guys, even though who do I got? Is Shane McClanahan's a 2-time Tommy John guy, right?
Nate Eovaldi. If he can come back and pitch. Yeah. And Jason Isringhausen. Isringhausen had 3 of them, but that's beside the point.
That's unfortunate. I have Shane McClanahan and I have Strider in 2 different dynasty leagues. So, and I think Strider, is he a 2-time Tommy John guy as well?
No, he had
it at Clemson, didn't he?
He had it at Clemson, but he had the internal brace procedure last year, so not technically Tommy John.
But 2 massive surgeries. So I have Strider and Cole Reagans in different leagues, and McClanahan. I'm just so stressed out right now. But speaking of, you know what? One point we'll talk about Strider real quick, and Ben, I'm going to let you talk about this, being our resident Braves fan here. Strider, he's looking healthy, looking good. Any thoughts on? Do you think he's going to be ready for the start of the season? Do you think?
No, I don't. He's not going to be ready for the start of the season. I tweeted the other day that he grew his beard out, so I think that the mustachioed menace is gone, and the bearded behemoth is in. And I think this kid is going to come back. He's going to be throwing hard. He's going to be throwing a wipeout slider, and he's still incorporating his curveball and changeup into his repertoire. Which a year later I think is going to be much improved. I think he's going to rely more on his secondary pitches a little bit more than just his fastball now, which is good. A year removed from an internal brace procedure. I don't know. I really do want to wait, a couple months into the season, but he should be back at least by mid-May at the very latest. So, but he's not going to start the season on the OD roster.
Yeah. I hope so. I love watching Strider pitch. I think he's one of the most electric pitchers in baseball. So I think most people actually think that. So I think everyone, unless you're a Mets fan, you don't want Spencer Strider back.
I mean, as a baseball enjoyer, though, you want to see that guy on the mound. I just don't want to see him do it against the Mets. But granted, he's got over a 5 ERA against the Mets, so I'm pretty happy when he's on the mound so far.
Whoa! Shots fired.
Does he have over a 5 versus the Mets? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. What is Austin Riley's batting average?
He somehow has a 5-1 record, though. So typical Mets.
Yeah, you get the job done. You get the job done, right? Yeah.
It's only because the Braves' offense just absolutely destroys Mets pitching every time they face them.
Yeah. So I'll rattle these 3 off real quick. Kenley Jensen, veteran reliever. He was always going to wait for an opportunity to close. That was not something in question, I think. Yeah, and I don't think this was about money. He got a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Angels. Since the start of 2023, 105 appearances, 3.44 ERA, 114 strikeouts, and 56 saves. Angels are the White Sox are doing a poor man's version of the Angels, who are right now doing a poor man's version of the 2024 Royals. They're adding little pieces all over. I don't even know if Kenley Jensen is considered a little piece. I mean, he is, at this point in his career, he's not like the Emmanuel Clase of the world or, Mason Millers of the world, the top end closer, but he's going to get the job done for Los Angeles. And I think the Angels are drastically improved from year over year. From last year's season to this year's. So we'll see how that pans out. Ty France agreed to a 1-year deal with Minnesota on $1 million non-guaranteed money. So we'll see how that works out in Minnesota. They're very interesting that they just keep signing infielders, it seems like, and their prospects all stay in the infield. I don't know where they all play. I don't know. It's like Jose Miranda. You got who was the guy who kept breaking his wrist? The first baseman. It
Roy,
slips my the first
I mean,
baseman.
Royce Lewis is always hurt.
It
yeah,
wasn't
Royce Lewis is always
Lewis.
The
hurt.
whole roster is always hurt. Who's it? Kirilov?
Yes, Alex
Yeah,
Kirilloff.
Max Kirilloff.
Yeah.
Kirilloff.
So it's just like it's crazy how like everyone seems to be like an infielder. Hopefully, Emmanuel Rodriguez can get called up soon and produce something in the outfield out there with Byron Buxton. White Sox signed Michael A. Taylor. We'll jump to the National League and Hagan. I want you to step in here. Nick Pivetta, 4-year deal, $55 million contract. Thoughts on this for San Diego's rotation and what this means for the Dylan Ceases of the world?
That's the question: is what happens with Dylan Cease? Because Michael King already got that extension, so it seems like he's likely to stay. But even too, because the Padres have dealt that money issues, and the deal was very interesting, where it's $1 million this year and a $3 million signing bonus before he jumps up in the AAV. Which so AJ Preller got really creative, and you got to give him props for doing that and working within the constraints he has. I love this Nick Pivetta move. I mean, the Padres needed that. I mean, they had a very underwhelming offseason, probably one of the biggest losers before the last 3 or 4 days, I'd say. And they got there, and you get Nick Pivetta, who the results haven't really been there, but he has the stuff, and you can see that guy being a great 3 in that rotation for him.
Yeah, I was talking about Dean with this. I think Nick Pivetta is one of the he is one of the most undervalued pieces that was available this offseason. I think that any team would have benefited from adding him as a 4th, 5th starter. He can even be a 3rd starter for some teams. He can be a 1 starter, let's be honest, for a couple teams out there. But Pivetta is really good overall. He is now probably going to serve as their 3rd or 4th starter for the time being behind, the others, Michael Kings and the Dylan Ceases of the world out there, you Darvishes. They also just signed Kyle Hart. So I'm not that familiar with Kyle Hart. Ben, I wouldn't be shocked if or you, Hagan, as well. I don't know. Do you guys know Kyle Hart, the 32-year-old? Won the Korean version of the Cy Young last year. He pitched in the MLB back in 2020 with the Red Sox. Doesn't have much experience there though. Is this a big move, or are we aware of the Kyle Harts of the world at this point? Or
To be honest with you, I don't know much about him. I just looked him up on Baseball Reference as we were sitting here speaking, and Baseball Reference has him listed as a starting pitcher and center fielder, which I was shocked by whenever I looked it up. But he was a 19th round draft pick by the Sox in 2016. His only big league experience was he had a stint in 2020, and that's been it. The rest of the time he's been in the minors or in the KBO, which, like you said, he won the KBO version of the Cy Young last year. Low risk, maybe low reward, but a reward nonetheless type signing.
I'm a big fan of the journeyman, and this is a journeyman. He got drafted in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
16. There's almost 10 years
19th round.
Yeah.
19th.
And someone too that I like about this is the Padres pretty much they just got 2 guys in the rotation filled out for him for a total of $5 million. And like the dude who you got Nick Pivetta, who's maybe one of those underrated pitchers in baseball. Results aren't there yet though. And then Kyle Hart, I mean, I didn't know much about him until I looked him up, and it's like, but I'm very intrigued to see how he does, especially in spring, see how he looks.
I love it because if Kyle Hart and Pivetta work out and the Padres are able to put it, because let's not joke around. The Padres have plenty of star power with Machado and Tatis Jr. out there. They're not the Dodgers. But if that rotation could somehow now take down, the Dodgers did officially add Clayton Kershaw back this week for his 18th season. So one thing I saw about Kershaw, and everyone knows how great he is, right? Last year, he only pitched 30 innings, but over his lifetime, he has a 2.5 ERA, and he has 156 ERA plus, which ranks first among pitchers with at least 2,000 innings in MLB history. That is something. Greatness. I'm so glad I have his autograph. I'm very happy. He will be first ballot Hall of Famer. The rotation now looks as so. Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Ohtani, Roki Sasaki, and then Clayton Kershaw. Do you think at this point the rotation will and Hagan, you can start us off here. Do you think that's the right rotation move? Having Ohtani as the 4th starter essentially is what I'm getting at? Or do you think you should push Kershaw and Roki Sasaki a little bit more and let Ohtani ease himself on into things. I think he's the most valuable player on the rotation. So it's like you got to
Yeah,
cater to
you
his own.
definitely have to cater to Ohtani, and I think the Dodgers have shown they're going to do that. I think it came out the other day that he's not going to pitch at all in spring training. They're going to take their time with him, especially because he's a two-time Tommy John guy as well. So you got to be careful with him, especially when you've invested $700 million into a guy. But this Kershaw move, it is interesting because obviously he's going right on the 60-day IL, and you don't really know how many starts you're going to get out of him. And like me and Ben have been talking about their rotation the last couple of days. They might have the 1A rotation and the 1B rotation in baseball. Like they have, there was four names I didn't even bring up that could be threes in half the league. Like their rotation is so deep, so it's kind of hard to like. You want to see Kershaw in there, but it's like, how do you find to get this guy 10 starts? I don't know.
Ben, I gotta start talking with you more. You have these one-liners that crack my shit up. I started last time Pat Hoberg, the Shohei Ohtani of Empires, and that just very, very good take. I'm gonna rattle these last few National League updates off because I want to get more into the injuries here before we hop off. Kiki Hernandez signs a 1-year deal with LA for $6.5 million. Crazy that he's getting $6.5 million. Atlanta, they just brought in Chad Kuhl, Jake Diekman, Dylan Covey, all signed with the Braves, non-rostered invites. Ben, you go real quick on this one. Give us what do you think on these guys getting added to the bullpen depth here?
I mean, AA has this thing ever since he's been a GM where he just signs some guys who are past their prime, air quotes, or nobodies, and at least one of them, like, I'm sorry, you throw shit against the wall, and eventually it's going to stick. I mean, that's just basically what it is. And, there's nothing special about these guys. I mean, Jake Diekman and Chad Kuhl have had success in their career, but we'll see. The non-roster invites, again, low risk, high reward.
Yeah, spot on. Philly, another low risk, high reward. They just signed Christian Arroyo. He's 29 years old to a minor league deal. He got an invitation to Major League Camp. In 2013, he was a first-round pick, and he rose all the way to the top of the San Francisco farm system. The guy clearly has talent. We'll see how this works for Philly. If Philly just snuck in a little middle infielder or utility guy with that lineup already, yikes. We'll see how that goes. Nick Anderson, former Brave. I love Nick Anderson, by the way. He was a Tampa Bay Ray, I believe, before the Braves, and he was maybe with the Royals as well before then too. He signed with the Cardinals. He has a 3.18 ERA, 158 career innings with a 32% strikeout rate, and he only walks 7% of batters he faces. Cardinals, this is their one move, and I love it. I hate that it's the Cardinals because it's like you've done jack the rest of the offseason, but you're going to take my guy, Nick Anderson, and take him away from a real contender. We'll jump into the injuries. So now this stat's been trending this week. I'm sure you both have seen it on X. Let's talk Anthony Rendon real quick. So 5 years into the 7-year deal, $45 million. Like it's a $250 million this guy is getting. He's only played 257 games 5 years into this deal. And he's now going to get hip surgery. He might miss the entire season with a hip injury. It's a hip. It's like, I know hip replacements are nowadays, and he's not getting a hip replacement. But I'm saying, like, you hear people get hip replacements. They're like, oh, I was in and out the same day. It's like, there's a difference between like a fat old man getting a hip replacement and Anthony Rendon, who's been trending downward, trying to play third base at an elite level in the professional baseball. This might be the worst deal in baseball right now, and one of the worst deals in the history of baseball. Do you guys think there's any chance Anthony Rendon has a comeback here, or do you think the Rendon career is just gone?
I think it's gone. I mean, even if he finishes out this deal, he has a couple of years left on the deal. If he makes it, if he even plays again during this deal, I mean, who's going to pick him up? He doesn't like baseball. Like who's going to want to bring him into their team? And I granted, yeah, he won't make the same money, but he doesn't really like baseball. To him, it's just a job to him. It's not really, doesn't really love the game. And we know that. But also too, it's like he's not a guy you really want there too. Like he's not really a fans guy. Fans aren't really going to like him that much. And it's sad too, because he had a great career, especially with the Nationals. I mean, when they won the World Series, he was a huge part of it for him.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I feel for him in a little bit of a sense. Like, I don't feel for the money at all. Like, you're making money that no one in America is seeing. Like, no one in the world is seeing. Let's be honest. Like, it's tough when you're making that much money to not like your job, but like if he's truly unhappy and like everyone in the world has dealt with unhappiness, if like you're dealing with a situation that you're truly unhappy in, that's a tough spot to be in, no matter what the paycheck is. Money does not bring happiness, and I get that, but tough situation overall. Ben,
I forget.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say about the Rendon. I forget who it was on X, but I did see this tweet the other day, and it was so interesting to me because the Nationals have had like 19 third basemen since Anthony Rendon signed with the Angels, and the Angels have had like 26 third basemen since Anthony Rendon signed with the Angels. So I thought that was insane. I forget. I wish I could give credit to who it was because I cannot find it now. But it was nuts to me.
That is not only insane. That is why I love this game, because in no other sport will you have the ridiculous statistics that you get in Major League Baseball. And
it was
that's
crazy.
That is.
I was like, "What the hell?" I looked at that. And I was like,
and that's just such an Angels thing to happen too. Like we saw with the Pools thing, where like you could see why they gave him the Pools deal, but it's like he wasn't great at the end. But it's like the Angels, it's just an Angels deal.
Spencer Horwitz, he's having surgery. This is terrible for Pittsburgh. They just acquired him, and he's now going to miss 1.5 to 2 months with wrist surgery. That's a tough beat for Pittsburgh. He's like a bat that they thought, like, hey, we have a young rotation. It looks great. Like, we're bringing in Spencer Horwitz, and that plan's obviously now 2 months in. He's not going to probably play till around June, I'm guessing, after rehabilitation and everything.
On a positive note, 6 to 8 weeks is a hell of a lot better than 6 to 8 months. I mean, at least they do get him back. They desperately need offense to help that pitching staff with Jared Jones, Paul Skeens, Mitch Keller, Luis Ortiz got traded. They're going to have
Bubba Chandler.
Bubba Chandler coming up. I don't know. I'm sorry. I couldn't think of his name.
No, good. And they also have, who's the other kid? Harrison. And then they also have, is Braxton Ashcraft there now too, sitting in the farm system ready to go?
Sure, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one.
It doesn't. More of the my disappointment and frustration with this injury is because I like Pittsburgh. I like Paul Skeens. They cannot in an NL Central that is not theirs to take. This is going to be a gauntlet with Milwaukee. St. Louis is not great, but they're not going to get. I don't anticipate them to get run over, but series after series after series, they're going to take a few. They still have Fetty. They still have Sonny Gray. They still have like pieces. And then you got the Cubs. You can't fall behind too many games early in the season. You need offense, Pittsburgh. You need to go get someone to replace this, in my mind, like ASAP. We'll see how that works. But another contender right now in the American League, Texas, Jacob deGrom. Big update. Bruce Bochy saying looking good and healthy. I know that means very little when it comes to Jacob deGrom, but guys, real quick, what's the earliest round you're taking him in your fantasy drafts this year? Hagan, we'll start with you.
I'm taking deGrom wherever his ADP is. Wherever his ADP is, I might take him a little before that because I am all in on deGrom. And I know that's crazy to say because of it's always the same thing every year where it's, deGrom's healthy, and then he hurts his elbow again. I mean, I looked it up the other day. His last 5 seasons, he has 30 starts. He has a 1-year workload in the last 5 seasons. But one thing to think about too with deGrom and why I'm very high on him. It's very optimistic, but it's also he was healthy. He could have came back at the end of last year. I mean, he did come back at the end of last year, and it's a guy. He's healthy, and he got that full off season. He got that full off season to kind of just go through the normal. He wasn't really rehabbing. He just went through a normal off season, like there was no injuries at all. So he's 100% healthy, and it's a great sign when Jacob deGrom's on the mound and pitching.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's Jacob deGrom. I don't think there's much more to say besides that. When he's on, he's on. When he's not, he's not. Ben Brown, he's a starter for the Cubs. He saw his rookie season end prematurely, unfortunately. Back against the Reds on June 8th, he had a neck injury. And now, it's looking like he could be healthy. And last year, 55 innings, 64 strikeouts, sub 4 ERA, it was a sub 1.1 whip. And he did that through 15 games, 8 starts. Ben Brown could be a really nice piece for Chicago that people are not talking about. as one of their starters. And they got Shota. He's obviously probably their 1 or 2. I'm forgetting about Justin Steele. And then Ben Brown comes around. That could be a nice little 1-2-3 punch and like that is exactly why with Pittsburgh, back to my point, you can't afford to lose games. You need the division because a wild card series, you do not want to play against a pesky team like Chicago. Like with Kyle Tucker now. Like, are you kidding me? Like Chicago is I think they're gonna be sneaky this year. Finally, we'll round it out a couple of Yankees things and close it off with a legendary center fielder joining a staff here. Aaron Boone, Yankees. I'm annoyed with him right now. He's saying like he talking about the Dodgers series and all this. He seems like a sore loser right now. I'm not liking it from like, dude, the Dodgers are better. They crushed us. And like our best player is the one who Aaron Judge making errors. We got Garrett Cole. And I'll finally admit this on the air. Garrett Cole should have covered first base. I've been fighting against that for months. I've been blaming Rizzo. Yeah, like Boone, shut up, manage, get your extension because he's gonna get an extension here soon. It seems like. I don't like it. Now with the Yankees also on top of this Boone stuff going on, it's like focus on the season. You made all these additions. You got Marcus Stroman now in this headache. This would be like probably the last thing we talk about. What do you guys think about Marcus Stroman? Do you think he's worth a team trading for? Hagan, we'll start with you. Do you think a team could use Marcus Stroman? He does not want to be in the bullpen, he said. He wants to be a starter. So anyone who's trading for him, you have to envision him. He wants to start.
And I think Stroman's right. He is a starter. I mean, he still is a good 4 or 5 in a rotation for a lot of teams out there. He's on the Yankees right now, who are the favorite in the American League, where he's kind of in that 6th spot right now, and I don't think they're going to do that 6-man rotation. But I think Marcus Stroman, the player, is someone that teams would want to go for. You could have that. And like 17, I think it's $16-17 million he's at. That's not that much in the pitching market we're in now. That's not an expensive starting pitcher. That's, I'd say, an average price now. I mean, we saw a guy like Frankie Montas get $17 million for the Mets. But to me, there's a reason why Marcus Stroman hasn't been traded this offseason. I mean, we see it now. His comments in the media and everything. There's a reason why teams haven't traded for him because the Yankees have been trying to get rid of him for a while. Whether it's been out there or not, you look at the roster and it's like he's kind of the odd man out there, especially when you have a Clark Schmidt there in that 5 spot where he's a lot cheaper than Marcus Stroman.
Yeah. Ben, are you a Marcus Stroman lover or hater? Or net neutral?
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really have anything else to add other than what Hagan said. I think he hit it nail on the head. I mean, he's a decent pitcher. He could be a starter, on most teams. The attitude, like I don't want to say you gotta treat people with respect because I don't know if it's a respect thing, but I think Marcus Stroman's just gotta calm it down a little bit, telling if you watch the interview, he's like, I'm a starter. I won't pitch in the bullpen. Very almost. I don't know if it was aggressive,
assertive.
Yeah,
it was assertive, and sometimes that's their job. They got to ask questions, whether you like it or not. They're going to ask you questions that you don't necessarily want to answer. Like, take a page out of Marshawn Lynch's book. I'm just here so I don't get fined. I mean, he didn't do it assertive. He was just doing it having fun with it. And I think that's what Stroman should probably take a look at.
Yeah, and Marshawn Lynch was doing it smart, as wise as well, because he was he knew he could incriminate himself with, and it would hurt him.
Right.
Why am I going to talk about an open contract deal with the public? That's none of their business. That's my contract. It's the organization. I'm going to talk about it with them. You
exactly.
Say that, and that's it. I don't know. It does frustrate me too. You expect everyone to be. It is the professional league, but you got to realize there's emotions in this game. And I'm not saying you guys know better than I. You both played, but it's sports. There's emotions. We're people, and Marcus Stroman is a person. I can understand. Last year, 30 starts or 29 starts. So he had a 4.3 ERA. Pretty good year, honestly. And that was pitching in Yankee Stadium half the time. Where balls fly out of there. It's not a hard park to hit at. That's why numbers are juiced in Yankee Stadium. Everyone knows that. But well, we'll close off. Kevin Kiermaier, I called him legendary. He's more of a legendary fielder. I'm a big Kevin Kiermaier fan. I don't say that lightly because he was. I don't know if you guys know this. He's from Fort Wayne, Indiana. He was committed to Purdue, my alma mater, before he got drafted, and then he said, "Fuck that, I'm going to the MLB."
Hell yeah.
But Kiermaier, I'm pretty sure he was drafted actually, and then yeah, he was at Bishop Luers High School, and he committed, and then he enrolled at Parkland College instead. Actually, that's right. So he went to an NJCC, and then he was drafted by the Rays in the 31st round of the 2010 draft. So I think he realized he wanted to go to a smaller school or whatever it was, but he's a big Purdue guy. Kiermaier, defensively, one of the best center fielders of our time, defensively. He's going to be with the Blue Jays now. So it seems like he's found his niche in Toronto after getting traded there. Or did he sign or trade? I forget.
I think he signed there.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't even really matter. But, like, he's found a home in Toronto. This could be a nice little piece for Toronto. Like, defensively speaking, how could adding a Kevin Kiermaier to the staff hurt? Outside of that, I didn't have much more else this week. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we hop off?
I do just want to bring up one more point on the Stroman thing. Another thing, too, I can see what in his case where he's kind of coming off a little aggressively because he's got a vesting option for the next season, and he's going to throw 140 innings this year if he wants that vesting option for $18 million. If he's in the bullpen, then he's losing out on $18 million.
That's more understandable than that's more understandable.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I am too.
Well, good luck with that, Marcus. Outside of that, I don't know if you guys saw the Chinook seeds we got. The Chinook, now a friend of the Skipper's View. We got seed reviews coming out because us in baseball, we love chewing on sunflower seeds. So if you haven't had them, I've heard they're delicious. Dean will be sending all the Skipper's View team packs of them. So if you didn't get your address over to Dean, definitely do it, you two. And next time you're on, we'll talk about that lemon pepper ranch flavor, which one we want to go with.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening. Go listen to us, follow Ben, follow Hagan on X, Twitter. We'll be back. Bye.